The Truth About Doom Eternal, featuring game director Hugo Martin. Thank you guys for the support. Thank you guys for making this happen. Thank you to Hugo, Alston, and Josh, especially, for setting up this interview. And without further ado, here we go. Why did the team want to go for a more cartoony look with Doom Eternal compared to Doom 2016?
We wanted the game to have a bit more mechanical depth than 2016. We felt like a fair criticism of 2016 was that it got a little repetitive and it was kind of one-dimensional, which we saw in the numbers that there was some improvements to be made there in terms of how people were engaging with it and some of the feedback that we read online. So the more that we emphasized gameplay and a combat loop, that had a little bit more depth to it, the more of the game had to bend to try to better meet that goal, that objective. So the moody lighting and art direction of Doom 3 was starting to become problematic during the early phase of development of Doom Eternal. In that, you're asking more of me, so that Whiplash character that's in the fog and in the smoke and in the shadows is now killing me with an attack, and it was an unacceptable death because I was unable to see and assess my targets. So the gameplay got a little bit more nuanced, and I think the art direction had to be altered to fit it. The goal was to really try to make a game that stood on its own. I don't know that we looked at it like 2016's art style was going to be the art style for the rest of the reboot. We wanted each game to stand on its own, so that way it would have its own flavor. And what Doom is, with the reboots we're trying to do, is kind of rope in all of the Doom brands, and we think that Doom is, not just. I think it's fair to say that Doom 2016 borrows a lot visually from Doom 3, and that's great because Doom 3 is great. But Doom Eternal borrows heavily from Doom 1. The more that we focused on gameplay, the more that it pushed us towards a Doom 1 aesthetic where health vials and pickups and different things were really obvious in the world, and that really lent itself to fast-paced gameplay and being able to make decisions really quick. So you could say that it's much more true to the original Doom than 2016 was, and that was driven by the design of the gameplay and the combat loop.
It also helps out Doom 2016 a lot, having completely different art styles, because, someone might go, why would I play Doom 2016 when I can dash and meat hook and do all these things in Doom Eternal? But the fact that it looks completely different and has its own thing going on, has its own tone and everything, really helps that game out, and really helps both games stand out, completely from...
Which is what we wanted, because I think that when you look at the way people buy games today, they kind of, a game is viable now for a decade. I mean, people are still buying Dark Souls 1, 2, 3, and we just wanted it to feel like if it stayed too close to 2016, then if you played 2016 and then you want to go play Eternal and you have the quarter of the way through you realize that it's just more of 2016, you might not be motivated to finish it. So really, each game now stands on its own, no better, no worse. People are always asking us to compare the two, and
They're just different.
they're just different. That's it. I don't look at it like this one's better than that one. I think they have strengths and weaknesses, but that was mostly why, to make sure that they stood on their own, so that if you played them in sequence, it would feel satisfying.
What was your favorite map type to plan out and kind of design for Doom Eternal? For example, there is the hub style of map with the blood swamps, or the linear run and gun style with Art Complex.
I think each of them has their own design story and kind of the journey that they take from just a kernel of an idea to a final product. Each one is special. It's such a lame answer, but that's really the answer, is that I don't know that I have a favorite, because all of them, I have good memories of working on all of them, with the team. I think they both have strengths. Try to avoid having too many of the same kinds of maps one after the other. So there's subtle differences between them, and you said it, blood swamps, a combat puzzle filled hub map where you there's a central area, you go right, you go left, along the way we're really, really testing the player. And I think in that regard, Blood Swamps is probably one of the most ambitious maps from a game design perspective, because it's loaded with puzzles, and we have many others like that. I mean, Super Gore Nest certainly is one of those, but there are some pretty memorable sequences in there, certainly with the wolf. I'm very proud of the wolf. I mean, that was the tech art and design group at id, the tad group, uh, headed up by Garrett, and we've got some incredible people working in there, Tim Locke, who are really helping us make some unique experiences in Doom now, using Logic Designer and some of the new tools that they're working on. And the Blood Swamps is full of that stuff, from the cube fight to the wolf sequence, which I think the wolf sequence is just a real good step in the right direction to kind of provide the player with a break from just hallways and arenas. Like, it's a unique combat puzzle to solve, and it's not just like walk forward and kill stuff. Our complex is many people's favorite maps because of the pacing. Like, that map was inspired by seek and an attitude of seek and destroy, like a Christopher Nolan film, or like The Winter Soldier. There's just kind of a tempo and a momentum to the music, to the action, to the way it's composed, that you're just constantly moving forward through the space. And then a lot of the spaces are enclosed and kind of small. So the smaller the space you're in, the faster you feel like you're moving, because the walls are closer to you and things are going by really fast. Kind of like on a train, the signs that are up close to the train look like they're whipping by, but then the horizon looks like it's not moving at all. So in some of our maps that are really huge, it affects how you feel. That's why some people at the start of the game think that the game is smaller, but that's just because the spaces are bigger, because there's more AI in them. But in our complex, it's tighter spaces, so you move through it really fast. And I think that's really the joy of that map. That, and also the art team did a tremendous job with destructibles. There's a fair amount of destruction going on in that map to make the player feel strong. So both great maps. Really couldn't say which, and I could honestly just run through every map and tell you the what we like about each of them. So can't pick a favorite. It's impossible.
Yeah, of course. I mean, each designer kind of has their own sort of flair. Like, even going back to like Doom 1993, like Romero has a very different sort of map design philosophy than other designers.
Formulas are good things, but you really do need to let your designers, level designers, AI, all those people, uh, you can have strong direction and guideposts, and you could also still have ownership in what you do. So those two things aren't mutually exclusive. So I think that we really try to, there's broad principles at place, but you also really want to give the designers room to do their job. And I think that's how people do their best work. So each one does bring to the table some really unique flair to the overall experience. The only reason why we try to hold on to some broad strokes principles is so that way there's just a consistency, enough consistency for the players are capitalizing on things that they've learned, and they don't feel uncomfortably surprised by some stuff.
Did you ever think about adding or planning more sort of exploration focused or like non-linear levels to the game during development? For example, Foundry in Doom 2016.
Blood Swamps is kind of like that. Like, you can go any way you want, but it's a little bit more linear than that. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, those are hub style maps. We would like to continue to make maps like that, absolutely, in the future. I think that some maps like Arc Complex or Mars Core are linear, but they take advantage of their linearity, and they still have puzzles and pathing and branching paths and secrets. So no map is like a on rails, forward progression, but some of them are unquestionably more linear. But I think those maps, like Mars Core, which is one of our best, uh, takes advantage of that and really takes the player on a journey. Like, you go from the surface, the Phobos, to chunks of Mars scattered throughout, space, to then the core of Mars, which is the only way you could do that is by crafting a semi-linear experience. So I think we've gotten better at taking advantage of what those kind of maps offer us. And then I think we still want to do more of the hub style maps that you've described, because we think they're fun too. I think too much of that. I think there's a hot second where I think people think that after Foundry, that's all we're going to do is rip open gore nests. And I think a game with, 20, 30 hours of repetitive tasks like that, you really need to not, like, enjoy games like that all the time. I think that requires a certain scope in order to maintain engagement with the player. I think you have to have a very big game if that's what you're going to be asking them to do. And I think lots of games do that well. I don't know that that's the kind of game that we make, but doing that once in a while, I think is really satisfying.
Sort of a different topic. What happened to the unused pistol weapon in Doom Eternal? I know it was in Doom 2016, and it's been, a staple of the Doom franchise, but it is absent.
It just didn't have a place. It's always been this weird gun. Um, the pistol that never runs out of ammo in 2016 is troublesome because I think it teaches people to like not really conserve. It encourages weird play styles that don't really hold up in the long haul. We really want people managing their resources because that's just a big part of the engagement in Doom. And so a pistol with endless ammo certainly would fly in the face of that. And then it's just like just get to the shotgun as the base tool. It was a gun that really just didn't have a place, and honestly it prevents us from being able to do more stuff, so we just pushed it aside. Like, why have a small, it's not to say that there aren't amazing pistols in games, there are a million, but it just didn't seem to fit in our game.
Were there any other level, like scrapped level or demon ideas that were planned early on? I do remember a stream where you talked about a ship being, I think it was cultist base, right?
Oh yeah. Rich Eastwood is a great designer. We had plans for a very large ship with like an atrium on it that the player would run through, and there was going to be some zero gravity sequences. It's pretty crazy. But we ended up scrapping it just because it's like it's there's so much stuff we wanted to do with the combat that, like, at that time it just didn't feel like there was room to rope it into the overall experience. I still think a 0G experience would be pretty cool, but we just, yeah, it ended up on the cutting room floor. You're always balancing time, schedule, just a variety of different things. So there was that.
I assume you don't limit yourself much, like in, this is Doom, for fuck's sake. You don't limit yourself like, oh.
That's really it. Is like there's nothing that we cut that we regret cutting. Like, we're given this unique opportunity with Doom to be able to just make a all-out first-person shooter single-player campaign, and just a to the limit action game. And so, yeah, there isn't much that we didn't get to do. I mean, we pretty much feel like we. That's not to say that we don't have more ideas or there aren't things that we'd like to do moving forward, or that we feel like we could do better. But like, yeah, I feel like we got a chance to do just about everything we wanted to do.
What are some of your favorite Doom Eternal combat encounters? One of my favorites from DLC 2 specifically is the Bloodmaker and Prowler area in the World Spear, since they are both elusive demon types. And also, to the viewers listening at home, I am recording this post-interview. I thought I sounded poor myself because I was pretty sleep deprived. But yeah, that's why I'm recording some of these questions post-interview, post-commentary style. Hugo and Josh were great, so yeah.
There's so many. I mean, I think some of the fog sequences in the swamps are still my favorite because they really test the player in a unique way. I like the platform in Amora with the two Marauders and the Screechers. Like, I love that encounter just kind of fucks with you. Like, you can't quite do what you want to do because those Screechers are around. And I really like what the Screechers bring to the table. I like the hallway leading into in Reclaimed Earth at the final arena. That 3 Screecher hallway is really cool. I love the arenas. I mean, the arenas are the best part. I mean, that, like, the final arena in Cultist Space, one of my favorite fights. Like, it's crazy, super hard, you're super pushed. And it feels really good. Like, you're just flying around. But like, so it goes without saying that the arenas are kind of like the star of the show. But I like the moments where, like, in Cultist Space, where you've got the firewalls and you're inside there with the all the walls catch fire and you drop down below and you have to solve that combat puzzle. I think that moment's just awesome. It really gets you thinking. There's so many moments like that I'm just super proud of, and the work that the team did. Yeah, those are just some of the ones that come to mind, but there's quite a few.
Even though the combat arenas are like the best part, I will say, like, the incidental combat encounters, you've really improved and polished up over Doom 2016 especially.
Was it just hallways?
Yeah.
2016 was just guys in hallways. Like, But like the Doom Hunter base, for example, there's a sequence where you have to walk around the outer edge of this large structure, and then the wall to the left of you is electrified, so you have to stay to the edge, and then all of a sudden enemies come out. That's just a great moment. A lot of care was taken, by everyone involved to make sure that there's just that those moments are compelling little moments outside of the arenas. Whereas 2016 really just had the arenas, like it was all about those.
Also with the incidental combat encounters, once you get really good at the game and once you start replaying levels, you can meet Hook over like Kako demons and use them as sort of vantage points, and like especially in like levels like
Yeah.
Mars Core. How often does the team play the classic Doom games, Doom 1, Doom 2, Doom 64, even Final Doom, to get inspired?
We usually play them at the start of a new project. Like there's honestly all the like Quake 1 single player, Quake 2 single like there's those games really have a lot to offer. And the Doom 1, Doom 2, Doom 64, absolutely Doom 3. We're due to play it again. I think, those are our legacy. That's part of our legacy, so I think there's just a lot to learn from those games. I mean, I think so much of Eternal came from a closer evaluation of the original Doom. People always think like, oh my God, the ammo stuff in Eternal. It's like, if you play the original Doom and you don't put on cheat codes, resource management is a thing in that game.
If you don't know where the secrets are, like you are
Yeah.
kind of fucked. Yeah.
Like the gun that you're dying to use all the time, like the rocket launchers or the plasma gun, because they're really powerful. You spend a lot of time looking for and conserving the ammo of those weapons because it's not that easy to come by. So, but that makes the encounters so much more interesting. Like I think most people's impressions of Doom go back to them putting in a cheat code, right? And just running around feeling like God. And that's awesome. That feels really good too. But like the original Doom games didn't play that way, you know. Without, obviously you could put the cheat codes in, but like, if you play the base game, and I think that's why they hold up.
Yeah, like the plasma rifle in the original game and the BFG, they share ammo. They share the same plasma cells. So, like, do you fuck up the cyber demon with the BFG in one shot, or do you conserve the plasma rifle ammo to like pick on the little guy? But that leads into my other question: was making Doom Eternal feeling like classic Doom still a priority, like how it was with Doom 2016's development? Because like you focused a lot in Doom 2016. I've seen interviews and stuff where like you were like, I need to make this like the classic games because this is what people expect. So was that as much of a priority?
We take we cherry pick our favorite parts, and we just focus on what feels like engaging, and what holds up, to players. We don't do it just for the sake of doing it, because then I think you get into like making like a retro game. But I think it's kind of like looking at like an old master's painting. Like when a filmmaker sits down to make a movie, like it's probably good to sit down and watch The Godfather for the fourth time. You know what I mean? Like, or 20th time. The just to kind of like, look at the history of the art form. And then we just kind of try to break down at the highest level, like why we think it's engaging. And that's where a lot of the Eternal stuff came from, honestly. When you look at the original characters, like the Pinky and the snarling sounds he makes and the Cacodemon, like it was intense, but it wasn't like scary. I mean, Doom 3 is a horror game. That's trying to be a horror game. And it is. It does a really good job. I mean, that game was genuinely scary when I played it back when it came out. But like, the original Doom was not like that, but I love that Doom 3 took it that place, and I love that Doom 1 didn't. I think it's all valid. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's a part of the id brand to have fun. I mean, we're kind of like a comic book studio, but that's not to say that like we couldn't do something that took itself more seriously or less seriously. Like I don't want to say that like everything we do has to be in that way that Adrian Carmack described to me, but like certainly if you're making a Doom game, I mean that's kind of one of the pillars of Doom.
The Cursed Prowler. Have you thought of updating him? And if so, how?
We want to add a sound effect for when he enters the arena, which should have been there at ship. And then we're going to make it so he automatically gives you a blood punch when you get cursed. Yeah. I might also make it so the cursed values in terms of how you lose health is just flat. So whatever it is for Hurt Me Plenty, we might just make it that for all difficulties. I like the character a lot. I like what he does for the combat. He's he's obviously like a DLC level character for people who know the loop. I wouldn't do that to first time players on the campaign, but I think it's still a little harsh. I don't disagree, but I think the drama that the Curse Prowler creates is needed. I mean, it's look, it's the thing that like when you get like these elite players, PB rocketing their way through the experience, that's awesome. But like, I think it's great to have a character that really keeps them on their toes. I think one of the issues though is that the modding community and their randomizer mods, which are great, that they're using that character in that way, and I don't think that I saw one where there were three curse prowlers in like the span of one encounter, which is like that's a lot, like, and you're gonna have some issues. Like it's kind of overusing that ingredient. So, but yeah, I think he needs a sound effect coming in. I think automatic blood punch, and then maybe just flattening out the values across the board. But I do think the sound effect and the blood punch, those are a lock. Those are already in.
How many rewrites of the lore does the team go through, and what are some of the notable scrapped plot ideas for Doom Eternal, and even, Doom 2016?
I couldn't say on the scrapped stuff because that starts to go too far into the back into the backlogs, and I don't know.
Sure.
I think it's tricky to get into that.
Sure.
But yeah, we go through a couple versions. I mean, I think you're outlining kind of the broad strokes of what it is you're trying to do. Work with various people on the writing of the thing, and collaborate effectively, and try to map out how best to take the story from A to Z. You want to avoid that it's all too predictable. You want to watch out that you're not jumping the shark. I mean, it's you just do your best. I think that the really just focus on maintaining the character's identity. Like Doom Guy and him being this Michael Myers esque hero, almost an anti-hero. And building up the legend of that character through each game that we make. So it's a fun process. It's enjoyable. It's something that a lot of the studio participates in because we're a small team. We work really closely together. So we try to weave in different parts of the narrative into the game design and everything else.
Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal are tonally quite different. Was there a concern about, maybe Doom Eternal was getting a bit too, like, zany or comic booky, or was it just like, fuck it?
I mean, I think that 2016 was pretty zany, but not. I mean, definitely Eternal takes a turn in a different direction, but it also it's the sequel. I mean, it expands on the scope of the game. So it's kind of like from Evil Dead 2 to Army of Darkness. No, I mean, I think it's hard to say that you could jump the shark or it when it comes to the tone, that comic book tone, when the core of your brand is like Pinkies and Doom Guy. Like your hero's name is Doom Guy, and the legend is he has a pet rabbit. Like that's part of what drives the comic book aesthetic and the comic book tone to things, is that at the core of it, going all the way back to the original Doom, it's shotguns, chainsaws, and cacodemons. I mean, the whole world is pretty ridiculous. So, and our hero is legendary for running around with sleeveless armor on, yet he's a space marine and his abs are exposed. So, like, that poster of Doom is so iconic that, like, but it's not iconic because it's like tonally, Sitting Bull, Black Ops, tonally realistic. We're going to recreate what a soldier is. Like, I love that stuff, but God, look at that poster. Like, that poster, when you look at the history of Call of Duty, going, Medal of Honor and Modern Warfare and all those things, like, they started with this is a military fantasy. Like, it's about the military, it's grounded in the military. So things like, storming of Normandy and all these things that they've done in the 80s and Cold War eras and stuff, these are like real events, and that power fantasy is about being a real soldier in different time periods. Doom's poster, the dude's six pack is exposed. He has no sleeves. He's a space, like, no sleeves, but he's wearing a space helmet.
Yeah.
Like, what is up with that?
That's the cool thing about Doom is, like, it is just demons and shotguns. That's why Doom 3
Yeah.
can be horror. Like, that's why Doom Eternal can
Well,
be this.
that's it. It's a B movie. It's Doom Eternal. Like, the original Doom is like a B movie, and Doom Eternal is a B movie with a summer blockbuster budget. Like,
Yeah.
that's the premise. Like, if someone gave Sam Raimi Transformers budget to make Evil Dead 3, that's what Doom Eternal is. So, And that's just, again, just staying true to our brand. If you look at that poster, there's just so much ridiculousness in there that we think it's important for it to kind of be that way.
Even with like Quake and stuff, like, oh, we'll have tech bases and Cthulhu elements, like they just kind of threw shit together and it worked. Like it's incredible, but they just did what they wanted, and that's part of the
Yes.
charm. Like it invites you into the development process.
Well, and I also don't think that, like, if we did another one, that it would also be the same. Like, we want to make sure that each one that we make feels like it's worth your time to play, that it's giving you something a little bit different each time, you know?
There were shortcomings with Doom 2016 that you've addressed on NoClip and stuff like that, and you've completely improved and fixed with Doom Eternal. I have no idea where you're going to go to improve the combat loop or improve
I
the
don't think we
combat.
should.
Yeah,
I don't think we should attempt to make a better version of Eternal. Like,
I don't think you can. Like I have no idea.
I look, for people who like the game, I'm not saying that it's like the perfect game. It has flaws. Um, but I don't know that there is a version of that kind of game that's beyond that. Like, the depth in the game, what you're able to do, the speed of it. That's not to say that we can't make a game that's, as fast, or in ways maybe faster, but like, uh for what it is, this kind of like, you know, movement shooter, skill based. Yeah, I think that's how we feel about 2016 though. Like, 2016 is like this beautifully simple, shotgun go boom, stylish game. Like, it's really good, and let it be that. You know what I mean? Don't make Shotgun Hallways Part 2. Just let that game be what it is, and I love that game for that. Then let Eternal be this movement based arena shooter, and that's it. Like, I don't think we didn't try to top 2016 necessarily. We did take the things we learned from that, and we'd always do that. There's certainly things, that we know we could do better. But I agree with you. Like, and I don't want this to sound arrogant. Like, oh, you can't do, you can't top turn. Like, no, it's like, you just shouldn't. Like, you just let it be its own thing.
Well, that's it from me. Those are all my questions. Thank you so much, both Hugo and Josh.
Hey, thank you.
That was my Hugo Martin interview. This is me, post-interview future self. Did I do okay? Did I do shit? Let me know in the comment section below. I'm sure you guys will tell me. I know who did do great though. Hugo Martin being a champ, answering all my questions. Thank you to Hugo and Josh for giving me this opportunity. And yeah man, this was surreal. I hope to do it again. Thank you for watching. Please make sure to rate, comment, and subscribe. And yeah, man. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.